Have you ever wondered why a man can stand in the presence of a woman and feel his entire sense of control begin to unravel, even when she has done nothing to demand his attention? Why some women, without a single touch, without a calculated word, become the center of his restless nights and wandering thoughts? This is not a trick of seduction manuals or shallow charm. It is something far more ancient, woven into the fabric of the psyche itself, where archetypes stir and the shadow breathes. Carl Jung knew well that attraction does not arise merely from what is seen, but from what is unconsciously evoked. The woman who embodies certain energies awakens dormant forces inside a man, forces he does not fully understand, yet cannot deny. What he craves most is not her compliance or her effort, but her very existence as a mirror of his hidden soul. She does not chase, she does not beg, she does not contort herself into the shape of his desires. Instead, she embodies her own essence, radiating the quiet defiance of someone who is complete in herself. And in that wholeness, she disrupts him. She becomes a living contradiction, soft yet untouchable, alluring yet self-contained. For the male psyche, which often rests on conquest and control, this contradiction breeds obsession. He cannot explain why he wants her, but he knows he cannot look away. She becomes a puzzle his rational mind cannot solve. The more she refuses to explain herself, the more his thoughts circle back to her. Silence for such a woman is not emptiness. It is pressure, a force that grows heavier with every unspoken word. And this is where obsession begins. Not in what she gives, but in what she withholds. The Stoic philosophers spoke of restraint as the highest power. Seneca taught that desire enslaves a man, not the woman who inspires it. When she does not move toward him, when she makes no effort to feed his ego, he is left with his own hunger echoing louder in the chambers of his mind. She has not trapped him. He has trapped himself. Her detachment forces him to wrestle with his own shadows, his unhealed wounds, his need for validation. In this way, she holds up a mirror to his deepest fears, that he is not enough, that his worth is conditional, that her gaze is not his to command. The woman who understands this dynamic does not need to perform. She only needs to remain true to her own center. Jung would call this individuation, the process of becoming whole, of standing firmly in one's identity without dissolving into another. When she embodies her individuation, she radiates a rare kind of magnetism. Men sense it instantly, even if they cannot articulate it. It is the aura of a woman who belongs to herself. And paradoxically, it is this independence that ignites their craving. Have you noticed how a man leans closer when a woman does not need him? He feels threatened and fascinated at once. His ego whispers that he must conquer her, yet his unconscious trembles before the realization that she is unconquerable. She triggers in him the archetype of the hunt, the primal drive to pursue what feels just beyond reach. But unlike prey, she does not flee. She stands, unafraid, her silence sharper than any weapon. This stillness is unbearable to the man who measures his worth by her response. In the absence of her validation, he becomes restless. He replays every interaction in his mind, searching for meaning in her smallest gestures. He reads significance into her pauses, her laughter, even her absence. She has become a projection screen, a canvas on which his unconscious paints every unspoken desire and insecurity. And as Jung taught, projection is always the birthplace of obsession, for the more he projects onto her, the less he sees her as she truly is, and the more he is ensnared by his own illusions. What makes this dynamic so powerful is that she does not fight for it. She does not need to manipulate or prove herself. Her very being is enough. Her refusal to collapse into his expectations sends shockwaves into his psyche, where the boy inside him still longs for the unattainable mother, the archetypal feminine who cannot be owned. To crave her is to confront his own incompleteness. And here lies the paradox. The more she does nothing, the more he feels everything. Her absence is louder than another woman's presence. Her silence is heavier than another woman's words. Her restraint is more intoxicating than another woman's surrender. In doing nothing, she has awakened everything in him. When a woman moves with this level of stillness, the entire dynamic of power shifts. He begins to orbit her, not because she has demanded it, but because his psyche finds no rest without her image haunting it. Jung once wrote that what we do not make conscious returns to us as fate, and for a man, the woman who embodies mystery becomes the embodiment of his unconscious fate. She is not chasing him, she is simply living. Yet in her silence, he feels the pull of inevitability. He cannot explain why she lingers in his thoughts long after she has left the room, why her laughter echoes louder than all the noise of the world, why even her absence feels like a presence pressing against his chest. Her power is not in seduction, it is in detachment. Modern psychology tells us that what is scarce becomes valuable, but Jung would remind us that it is not scarcity of availability, but scarcity of soul exposure that creates obsession. When a woman does not unveil every corner of her psyche, when she leaves shadows unexplored and secrets unspoken, the male unconscious cannot resist the call to fill those gaps. He is drawn to the unknown, because the unknown reflects the very parts of himself he has avoided. She awakens him not by giving, but by refusing to be fully given. There is a paradox in the male heart. He wants possession, yet what he truly desires is transcendence. He wants to hold her, yet what ignites him most is the sense that she cannot be fully possessed. This is why the woman who is self-contained, who does not collapse into him, becomes unforgettable. She does not resist to be cruel, but to remain sovereign. She stands as the reminder that he cannot own what is infinite. And so his desire grows, twisting into obsession, because the more he grasps, the more she slips beyond reach. In the language of Jungian psychology, she embodies the anima, the inner feminine archetype of the male psyche. Every man carries within him a hidden image of woman, born of myth, memory, and longing. But no woman in reality can ever fully match this ideal. And yet, when he meets a woman who awakens even a fragment of that inner vision, he cannot let go. She feels like destiny, like recognition, like a mirror of his hidden soul. In truth, he is falling in love with his own projection. But she, unknowingly, has become the canvas for it. This is why he obsesses, why he clings, why he replays her every movement in his imagination. She has triggered not his reason, but his unconscious. But make no mistake, this dynamic does not mean she is responsible for his turmoil. She has not manipulated him, nor does she bear the burden of his obsession. It is his shadow, not her intention, that drives the hunger. Yet here lies the quiet genius of feminine energy. By simply standing in her truth, she catalyzes transformation in him. He may resist it, he may rage against it, he may try to possess her, but in the end, he is being forced to face himself. To a man, silence from a woman is unbearable not because of its emptiness, but because of its fullness. He fills it with his own fears, his own fantasies, his own unmet needs. Every unanswered message, every withheld glance, becomes a canvas on which his unconscious scribbles stories of desire and inadequacy. She has not spoken a word, and yet she has said more to him than any conversation could. This is the essence of power without action, the kind of power that Stoics revered, the kind that Jung saw in the interplay of archetypes. Her magnetism lies in her refusal to be consumed, and it is this refusal that burns him with longing. He does not obsess over what is freely given. He obsesses over what awakens mystery, what compels him to dive into his own depths for answers he cannot find. He obsesses over her not because she belongs to him, but because she belongs to herself. And in a world where so many collapse into dependency, her sovereignty is rare. So rare it becomes unforgettable. The woman who understands this does not seek to control it. She knows her role is not to be conquered, but to remain whole. She lets him wrestle with his own hunger, his own projections, his own shadow. She is the flame. He is the moth circling endlessly, unable to resist. She need not chase. She need not speak. She need not lift a finger. For in her stillness, she has already moved mountains inside him. There is another layer to this obsession that few dare to name. The way absence creates a deeper bond than presence ever could. When a woman withdraws, when her energy retreats like the tide, she does not diminish in his mind. She multiplies. Jung taught that the unconscious thrives on symbols, and what is unseen becomes more potent than what is visible. In her absence, she ceases to be a woman of flesh and blood, and becomes instead a myth, a story, an eternal image that his psyche cannot let go of. Men will confess, quietly or desperately, that the women who stay endlessly available often fade into the background of their lives. But the woman who vanishes, who steps into silence, who does not need to explain, who lets the mystery remain unsolved, becomes unforgettable. His mind will gnaw on the unanswered question. Why did she leave? Why did she not need me? Why does she not return when others always do? This is the torment of obsession, born not from her actions but from her refusal to act. And yet, this is not cruelty. It is sovereignty. For a woman who knows her worth does not remain where her soul withers. Her silence is not punishment. It is protection. It is the declaration that her energy cannot be drained by one who cannot meet her fully. Modern psychology speaks of attachment wounds and trauma bonds, but Jung would say this: she is not triggering only his abandonment wound. She is awakening his individuation, the painful process of becoming whole. Through her absence, he is forced to see how fragile his sense of self truly is. Here is the paradox that scorches the male heart. He does not crave her presence alone. He craves the version of himself that emerges in her presence. She becomes the mirror where his best and worst selves collide. Around her, he feels both powerful and powerless, certain and lost, inflated and shattered. And when she walks away, he does not just lose her, he loses the mirror that revealed parts of him he cannot see alone. That is why he returns. That is why he obsesses. That is why he cannot sleep at night when her shadow is no longer beside him. To the woman who embodies this energy, there is no need for strategy. She does not play games, for her very being is enough. The Stoics taught that the highest form of strength is to need nothing external, to be sufficient in oneself, and here lies her secret. She is not performing to earn his affection. She is not bending herself to secure his loyalty. She simply exists as she is, unapologetically whole, unshaken by rejection, unattached to outcome. This is why she triggers his deepest hunger. For what man can resist the one thing he cannot control? Consider this: the men most unsettled by such women are not weak, but powerful. For the more a man is used to bending the world to his will, the more unbearable it is to find a woman who cannot be bent. Her stillness is his defeat. Her boundaries are his undoing. Her silence is louder than his triumphs. And in this battle he never signed up for, he finds himself reduced not by violence, but by her refusal to be conquered. Jung believed that every relationship is, at its core, an alchemical process. The woman who awakens obsession is not simply playing with a man's desire, she is transforming him. In her presence, his unconscious surges forward, his shadow screams for recognition, his anima demands integration. He thinks he is longing for her, but he is truly longing for the lost fragments of his own soul. She has become the symbol, the sacred mirror, the forbidden key to what he has never faced. This is why obsession burns so violently. It is not about her smile, her body, or her voice. It is about what those things unlock within him. He is chasing not only her, but also the ghost of his own unclaimed wholeness. And so he clings, he imagines, he returns again and again, hoping she will soothe the ache she did not create. The woman who knows this does not allow herself to be consumed. She understands that his obsession is not her burden to carry. She steps back, she remains sovereign, and she lets the storm rage without being swept into it. For the true power of the feminine is not in taking on his chaos, but in standing so deeply rooted in her own essence that no man's fire can burn her down. There comes a moment when his obsession turns from hunger to reverence. At first, he seeks possession. He wants to claim, to control. to tether her wildness to the ground. But the more she eludes his grasp, the more he begins to understand that she is not an object of ownership, but a force of nature. Jung spoke of the anima as both muse and tormentor, the inner feminine who leads a man not to comfort but to confrontation with his own depths. This woman, without lifting a finger, embodies that role. She does not soothe his ego, she dismantles it. She does not make him feel safe, she makes him feel alive. And this aliveness terrifies him. For in her presence he cannot remain numb. The parts of himself he has avoided, the grief, the shame, the longing for maternal warmth, the unspoken fear of failure, these awaken in her shadow. Her very existence forces him to look where he does not want to look. And yet, like a moth drawn to flame, he circles her endlessly, unable to escape the gravity of her energy. His logic tells him to move on, but his soul insists that something within her holds the answer he has been seeking all his life. This is the paradox of the feminine mystique. She does not beg for his attention, yet she consumes him. She does not demand his devotion, yet he offers it. She does not need him, yet he cannot imagine life without her. To the outside world, she may seem ordinary, walking through life with quiet steps, her smile soft, her words few. But beneath that stillness lies an aura that penetrates him more deeply than any performance of seduction ever could. He begins to obsess, not because she gives him too much, but because she gives him so little. She is not accessible on command. She does not explain her silence. She does not open her soul to every question. And the human mind, when denied answers, invents stories. In the spaces she leaves empty, he fills in his own fears, his fantasies, his unresolved wounds. She becomes the stage on which his unconscious projects its drama. And the more he projects, the more bound he becomes. Some men will chase endlessly, mistaking their obsession for love. Others will retreat in frustration, unable to endure the lack of control. But the rarest few, the ones brave enough, will begin to see her for what she truly is: a teacher, a mirror, a sacred initiator. These men will realize that the obsession is not about winning her, but about reclaiming themselves. They will see that the fire she awakens is not meant to consume her, but to illuminate the parts of themselves still hidden in shadow. For the woman, the question is never whether to stay or to leave, but whether she will remain sovereign while he wrestles with his own soul. Too often, women mistake male obsession for genuine devotion, surrendering their power to a man who is merely chasing his projections. But the awakened woman does not fall into this trap. She sees the difference between love and addiction, between reverence and control. She knows that true intimacy cannot exist until he has faced himself, until he no longer needs her as a mirror for his emptiness. This is why her silence is so potent. In a world that demands explanation, her refusal to perform gives him no escape. He must face the void her absence creates. He must confront the truth that no woman can complete him, that his obsession is his wound calling for healing. And in that confrontation, he either breaks or he awakens. The Stoics would call this a test of mastery, the ability to stand firm in the presence of what one desires most, without losing reason or dignity. To long for her, yet not attempt to cage her, that is the discipline he must learn. And in learning it, he discovers a higher form of love, one that does not consume, but liberates. For the woman, this is her quiet triumph. She does not manipulate, she does not coerce, she does not lower herself into games. She stands as she is, mysterious, untamed, whole. And in doing so, she triggers obsession not because she sought it, but because she embodies what he cannot yet name, the eternal feminine that calls a man toward his deepest self. The woman who knows this walks in freedom. She does not chase, for she is already complete. She does not fear abandonment, for she has chosen herself. And in her choice, she becomes untouchable, both the wound and the cure, the mystery and the mirror. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.